Hear now the Gospel of Luke, the 2nd chapter. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And lo, an angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were afraid. And the angel said to them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David the Savior, who is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign for you. You will find a babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there is with the angel a great multitude of heavenly hosts, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace and goodwill towards men. And it came to pass, as the angels were going away from the shepherds into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, Let us go into Bethlehem and see this thing which has come to pass, which the Lord has made known to us. And they made haste and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in the manger. And when they had seen it, they made known, saying what was told them concerning the child. And all they had heard wondered at these things which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things that they had heard and seen, as had been told to them. Here ends the Gospel reading. Chicago Tribune investigative reporter Lee Strobel was assigned to do a series of editorials about the poor in Chicago in the weeks leading up to Christmas. There was one family that really struck him, that made an impact for him, especially as somebody who's a deeply avowed atheist. This family, the Delgados, struck him because of their faith and trust in Jesus. You see, the Delgados were 60-year-old Perfectia and her two granddaughters, Lydia and Jennifer. Now, the Delgados were forced out of their tenement due to a fire, had to move quickly into the first apartment they could. When Lee Strobel went to interview them, he walked into their apartment that they had and found it bare. He describes that there was no furniture, no rugs, nothing hanging on the wall, just a kitchen table and a handful of rice. 11-year-old Lydia and 13-year-old Jenny only had some short-sleeved dresses and one thin gray sweater between them. When they would walk to school, Lydia would wear it part of the way, take it off, and then give it to her sister as they both shivered in Chicago cold. But despite the poverty, despite what they had faced with the fire, 60-year-old Perfectia, she had confidence in Jesus. She, like her granddaughters, trusted in Jesus' providence. She understood that no matter what, no matter what they were facing right now, Jesus had not abandoned them. Strobel felt that when he talked to her, there was no desperation. There was no deep sadness, but a look forward to the hope and peace that they had in Jesus and faith that they would make it through. Now, Strobel had completed his article about the Delgados and, of course, moved on to other editorial assignments that he had. The article was published, but by the time Christmas Eve rolled around, Strebel's thoughts went back to the Delgados, went back to their faith, and how it made an impact on him. He said, "I continue to wrestle with the irony of the situation. Here was a family that had nothing but faith, and yet they seemed happy. While I had everything I need materially, but lacked faith, and inside I felt as empty and as barren as their apartment." Now, Christmas Eve being a slow news day, Strebel decided to go and see the Delgados, see how they were doing. And when he arrived at their little apartment, he was amazed at what he saw. Readers of his article had an outpouring of generosity, giving donations and gifts to the Delgados. Once inside the apartment, he saw new furniture, trees, presents, all kinds of things, even cash that was donated to the family. Strebel was struck by the generosity of his readers, that his article made such an impact, and that they were so generous, so helpful to the Delgados that were in need. But beyond his amazement at the generosity that was given to the Delgados, he was more amazed at what the Delgados were doing with their gifts. "As surprised I was by the outpouring," Strebel said, "I was even more astonished by what my visit was interrupting. Perfecta and her granddaughters were getting ready to give away much of their newfound wealth. When Strebel asked why were they doing this, Perfecta said, 'Our neighbors are still in need, and we cannot have plenty while they have nothing. This is what Jesus would want us to do.' This blew Strebel away. If it had been him in his position, he would have hoarded everything that he had gotten. He asked Perfecta about the generosity of all those readers in the article that they were in. And she said, 'This is wonderful. It is very good. We don't deserve this. This is a gift from God.' And then she added, 'It is not his greatest gift. In fact, the greatest gift we celebrate tomorrow, and that is Jesus.' To Perfecta, the child in the manger meant far more than material possessions, more than security. And at that moment, something inside Lee Strebel desperately wanted to know this Jesus, because in a sense he saw that in Perfecta and her granddaughters. They had peace despite being in poverty. Strebel, on the other hand, had anxiety despite having plenty. The Delgados knew the joy of generosity, while he only knew the loneliness of ambition. The family looked heavenward for hope, while Strebel was shackled to the shallowness of the material, and that made Strebel long for what they had, or miraculously, the one that the Delgados knew. This night, this holy night, makes a great and lasting impact. It changes the lives of people. It shows the better way, the right and good way for all people to live. This night, this joyous night, is a night that we are drawn to. We are drawn to because of its hope, its meaning, because it is a night of a great impact, the birth of Jesus. Now, this night, long ago, the night Jesus was born, could have been a seemingly ordinary night, a night like any other. In a lot of ways, it was. Think about it. You have Mary and Joseph. They're a young couple, just starting out, just like any other young couple. They're expecting their first child, like so many. They have to travel because of this Roman census. Travel like so many other people who had to travel because of this decree by an emperor who lived far away in Rome. It was a night, an ordinary night, where Mary gave birth. She wrapped Jesus in bands of cloth, as was the custom of the time. It was a baby like any other baby, born to a peasant family, like so many others. An ordinary, seemingly ordinary night, with seemingly ordinary occurrence, one that happens all the time. A story that traditionally does not make history books. Certainly isn't something that people focus on who live thousands of miles away from the event and thousands of years into the future. An ordinary night, but it made such a great impact. An impact because of who was born. Jesus is God with us. And we can know him in that very ordinary reality of his birth. Because we can relate to Mary and Joseph and Jesus. We can relate to having children. We can relate to traveling. And sometimes when we do travel, we have a hard time finding a place to stay. We can relate to the machinations of a government messing our lives up. We can relate to them as ordinary people because they were. They are just like us. And that helps to make such an impact, a great impact, because we can know what it's like to be there in that manger. We can understand, just as we can understand. This night makes such a great impact because Jesus is God with us. Jesus, he is the prophesied Messiah. He is the one that we've heard prophecies about all throughout Advent. The one who would be born. The one where so many prophets and what they spoke for hundreds of years, even 1,000 years before Jesus, said would be. Jesus. He is God that has come down to show us the way, the truth, and the life. He is God that has come down to show us that in him we have salvation. This man that we can know, this man who walked the earth, this man who could be seemingly ordinary, is the great one, the Messiah for all humanity. It is up to you to know him, to understand him, to have faith in him, confess that he is Lord and know his salvation, to feel the impact of his birth and his life. That impact means so much. This impact of this night and beyond. It guides us in what we do. It guides us. Just like Delgados were guided in their faith after their apartment was set on fire and they had next to nothing. Just like faith guided so many people to help them out. Just like the impact of Jesus and his birth touched Lee Strobel. The impact of Jesus in this night creates a whole different world, a better world, one built on love, one built on care because it comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. We live by that impact and share that impact and so create that wonderful kingdom on this earth. The first week in Advent, Vicki and I were driving home the first Sunday, and as as we were driving along, we saw a horse that had fallen over on its side. It had slipped on some wet gravel, and it was, of course, an Amish buggy. And we stopped to help pick the horse up and help the people in that buggy. Now, why stop? Why care? Because that is the way of Jesus. The way of Jesus that says, that person along the side of the road, you help them out. You lift them up. It doesn't matter if what they're driving runs on diesel or oats. You show love. You show power and compassion. That is the way of Jesus. His impact that changes the world. And it has changed this world. Changes the course of nations and histories. Changes the course of lives. The world needs Jesus and his impact to change this world for the better. To change this country for the better. For our state and for our county. We need the impact of Jesus. So let the impact of this night be upon your heart. Live in the goodness and power of him. Rejoice that Jesus does make an impact. For there is no one else like him in history. Think about it. Think of all the people who ever existed throughout history. Who has made such an impact like Jesus? Made an impact because he is somebody who loves. He is somebody who cares. Who shows the good and righteous way. Let this night impact you. Let it impact you today and always. And know that Jesus was born to save you and all people